Welcome to By His Grace podcast. Not worthy, but worth it. I am Tanshel Ward, and I would like to welcome all of the listening and viewing audience to the podcast where I get to sit and speak with amazing guests. And today I have with me Dr. Shalunda Tyler. She is a mother, a doctorate of nursing practice, nursing professor, former den mother of the Boy Scout, medical staff for a high school band. She was a volunteer at a local shelter in Columbus, member of Zeta Phi Beta Incorporated. Chi Eta Phi Incorporated, which is a professional black sorority, inducted into the National Society of Leadership and Success, and has a certification Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. Dr. Tyler has done many great things in her career, and I get the pleasure to sit with her and let her tell her story. Welcome, Dr. Tyler, to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It is such a joy to have you, such a pleasure. And I am so grateful to have you join me. And tonight we are talking about being graced to nurse. Behind the scrubs. What happens behind the scrubs? We see nursing professionals and we see them on the front line caring for their patients and serving in hospital settings. But today I get to speak with her so that she can tell all the current nurses and those aspiring to be nurses about her journey. So let's get into it so you can hear all about Dr. Tyler. Dr. Tyler, how many years have you been a nurse?
This year I would have been a nurse for 25 years.
25 years. That's a long time. That's more years in nursing than some people are born.
Yes.
Our children are actually at that age. So you've been nursing as long as they have been born.
Right.
What does it take to become a nurse?
So to be a nurse, you have to either pass a associate degree program, which is 2 years, or a bachelor degree program, which is 4 years, because I'm a registered nurse. And for any nurses that are aspiring to go into that program, know that the 2 and 4 years isn't the minimum. Usually you have some core classes you have to take before, and then you take those nursing classes.
Okay, so it's a process to become a nurse.
Very much a process, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. And I've heard a lot of people say nursing school is so difficult and such a challenge, but you've made it.
Yes, I have. By the grace of God, I have made it.
Yes, by the grace of God. And we know that the purpose that God has for your life, it can't be denied. So explain to us, in your 25 years, what has your nursing career looked like and what roles you've served in as a professional nurse?
I've actually had a very blessed career. So I started out after associate degree school at Indiana State University. I was able to join an internship in the operating room. And so as an OR nurse, I was able to work in all surgical specialties. But I really specialized in transplant nursing, general surgery, robotics, and then laparoscopic surgery. And so I was able to start that internship program, become a bedside nurse for up to about 3 years. And then in the same internship program that I started, I actually was promoted into leadership at that department. So I was a OR educator, and then I was promoted to be the OR manager at that particular hospital. I was able to transition to a different state. I had an opportunity to follow one of the directors that saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, and she kind of mentored me, and I was able to be a OR nurse manager at a larger trauma center, which really kickstarted my career. And then I was moved to another hospital. I started out as OR management. I got into executive education and executive like Lean Six Sigma teaching. And from that, I was then promoted to a director position through COVID. And then I went from that position to a chief nursing officer of a hospital. And then now I'm a nursing professor, and I travel as a travel nurse.
Wow. Wow. This is awesome just to hear all that you've done in nursing and 3 years
Yes.
by the bedside, and then
Yes.
you're promoted to leadership.
I was. So some of the preceptors that I had as a new grad, I became their manager. And so it was a very, I was a young manager, but it was something that, like I said, they saw into me, and it just really kick-started my career. So I've been really a leader more than I even was at the bedside.
Wow. So that lets nurses know that it doesn't take years
No.
to be promoted and to advance. It just speaks to who you are and what you provide and what you bring to the career. That's what actually sets the trajectory,
Correct.
not the years.
And I really mentor young nurses a lot, that I was given that opportunity to start in a specialty area, like the operating room. Back when I started in nursing, they said everybody had to stay, in a nursing home or on a med-surg floor. But I was blessed that I got to go straight into my specialty. So it can happen, and I encourage people all the time now, not just to go on the bedside floor if you're looking at a specialty area.
Right. But you have to know what area that you would like to go in, because you actually have to have some concept of what you want to do with nursing, because it's such a broad field that has so many opportunities, because nurses and health care is needed everywhere.
Correct. And I will tell you, in your nursing school program, like I'm a registered nurse, I was able to do clinicals in all the different nursing floors. But I, like I said, I was blessed. I had a mentor in my life. Her name is Regina, and she was an OR nurse, and she was a good friend to the family, almost like a big sister to me now. And seeing her in her OR scrubs when I was growing up, and seeing her answer calls and her pager and all of that, it was all exciting. So through my clinicals, I always had OR in my back of my head. But I thought at the end I was going to be a labor and delivery nurse. And then I was able to shadow in the OR. The surgeon was nice because I'm short. He was like, give her a stool, let her look in. I was hooked. And then I never thought about labor and delivery again.
Okay.
So straight to the OR.
Wow. And that's serious if you go into the OR.
Yes.
Because you are seeing what I call the juices and berries of the body, the things that I think should not be seen by the human eyes, but you embraced it.
Correct. I'm the type of nurse that when you watch a horror movie, we're like, that doesn't really happen, because we already see everything, and it's okay. You get used to it. You're trained to handle all situations, and I really feel like I'm a calmer person because I've done operating room and trauma, and so it takes a lot to get me excited.
Wow.
Yes. My kids will tell you if they scratch themselves, that's not an emergency.
And so you don't get worked up over just seeing a little blood.
No.
You're basically saying, boy, go sit down somewhere.
Yes. They would tell you that too.
See, I'm not medical. I'm not medical. I can't deal with that. I don't want to see any of that. I think that all of that should stay on the inside.
Well,
I don't think it should be seen by the human eyes, but
it's very fascinating, I will say. That's why there's people like me who can enjoy it and take care of those who are asleep and can't take care of themselves.
Wow. And you have to have a heart to actually be what we say, a good nurse, a caring nurse. Education can't teach you how to have a heart for people.
No. And that is truly an aspect that if somebody inspires to be a nurse, that you have to understand that there is no paycheck that will be big enough to kind of oversee like the mental stress, the physical stress, the emotional that you're going to give to those patients. And so it really has to be that you want to care and be compassionate towards others. So you have to know that going into nursing, you're a service to others, especially at the worst time of their life.
Right. And people are scared.
Yes.
Most of the time when they come to the hospital, they are afraid of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And nurses tend to become the calm in the
Right.
midst of the storm.
Right.
Because when a nurse enters a room, you know that help has arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have a caring nurse. Did you always want to be a nurse?
It's funny you asked that. No, I didn't. When I was younger, I am a huge passion person for animals. And I always thought that I would be a veterinarian or something like that. And so it wasn't until I got a little older, and like I said, I had my mentor, Regina, who was a nurse, that I switched majors, because I actually even graduated from high school as a biomedical engineer student, because I thought I'd work in a lab. Mm-hmm. But nursing was the better calling for me.
Mm-hmm. And you seem to be doing it well.
Well, thank you.
With all of your roles and your promotions and even a doctorate of nursing, that means that you are walking now in your purpose. See, you thought it was going to be veterinarian career because of your love for animals, but to be a caring person and a loving person is who you are. So that is awesome to know that you embraced it.
Yeah.
And now you're not working on animals, you're actually helping humans.
Right.
Which is different because animals can't really tell you.
Correct.
How they feel. So you have to tap into what you observe, what you assess. Mm-hmm. But you get to deal with people every day.
Right.
And I know that sometimes it can be challenging.
Yes, it could be.
What's the most rewarding thing for you as a nurse? Because a lot of people go into nursing because they see the dollars. Mm-hmm. They see the opportunity to pave your way financially and to set a financial standard for your life. What did you learn from nursing that can't be monetized?
Right. So there is a big financial benefit in nursing. It is true. But the biggest thing with nursing is that, like I said, that compassion you have to give back to serving others. That's something that money can't, put on. So you are there to be compassionate. You're there to be a resource. You're there to provide a comfort. And so that is something that money can't, put a price on.
Right. And when you say about being a comfort, we know that we had to deal with COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I know COVID-19 was such a tasking time for medical professionals because you got to see people struggling. You got to see people at their worst. You had to see family members drop loved ones off and watch them endure the process.
Right.
What did you find behind the scrubs, behind the doors, when the doors were closed to the outside? What did you find that the hospitals did to deal with the influx of patients, but to deal with the mental trauma of the nurses? Because we heard that nurses and doctors were struggling with that. It was the profession that they chose and they loved, but COVID shifted that. What did you find that you observed because you were in leadership?
Correct.
What did the hospitals do that we from the outside didn't really get to see? Not the medical part, but more of providing and caring for the staff.
Correct. Well, I will tell you, even in my situation, that I was placed in a role, like I told you with my journey, at that time before I became a director, I was in an administrative position at the corporate office. And so any nurse or physician who was licensed, when COVID hit, because of the influx of patients, they kind of redeployed us, almost like the military, back to the bedside. And so I had been out of bedside leadership, and I was more in an advanced leadership position. And then going back to being a director at a bedside, I was back to being a director of 2 COVID units. So I had a total of 5 departments. And just because of my OR background, I inherited some OR floors as well. But 2 of my areas became COVID. And so to move a leader into a position where I am a trained leader, and I was able to adjust my leadership from operating room and perioperative to the med surg division. It still was a change, and it was an instant change. And so one of the things I don't think people know outside is that the hospitals had to make a lot of decisions like that. Like, a lot of people had to come back to the bedside as leaders, or nurses who worked at a certain unit had to float to another unit. So there was a lot of agility and flexibility that had to happen. But I will tell you the second part to your question about handling the mental health of the staff. Unfortunately, at that time, it was like all hands on deck to take care of patients and families. Right. And so we had to, as leaders, incorporate new policies that never was written, because we didn't have to have that. We had to look at new workflows for the hospitals. And then when families weren't allowed to be in the hospital, that created new policies and new procedures. And so until COVID was a little over and, it subsided, then we were able to focus on mental health of not just the staff, the families, patients, but we as leadership also. The hospital system that I worked at, they even made some COVID staff go mandatory to counseling, so they did add that after the COVID epidemic to provide counsels or provide counseling and therapy to staff that really, were struggling with that emotionally. But one of the worst things that I will say that happened is that a lot of staff, especially our tenured nurses, left the bedside. COVID, like I said, was probably the worst part of my career, or the hardest part of my career. And nurses left. And so, it was hard losing those experienced nurses from the bedside. It created a lot of shortages.
Right, because it's similar to what you hear when you say healing the wounded healer.
Yes.
Because nurses come in and you want to help and you want to heal and you want people to recover. But what happens to the wounded nurses who have to keep showing up?
Yes.
And then they too were enduring families having COVID and loved ones having COVID. Some of them probably watched people they knew enter into these hospital facilities. So it's good that your hospital decided that something needed to be done for nurses. And we hope that all hospitals saw that need.
Correct. Because
the nurses have to be well in order to care for others. Is it a common practice for hospitals and medical facilities to have any type of mental health services for their nurses and even doctors, all those who are first line of trauma?
And I know this was mostly speaking of nurses, but that service was for anybody in the hospital because, we had transporters, you have pharmacists, you have housekeepers, you have the whole group that helped take care of patients during COVID. So it wasn't just nurses, but being a hospital system, you usually do have like EAP program or you have resources even on a regular basis. It's just at the time that COVID hit, we just had to be all hands on deck, taking care of patients. And then I think now after everybody could just take a deep breath and then focus in on the trauma that we went through.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all medical professionals because you are such caring people. Because it's easy to care for a loved one.
Yes.
But you actually care for strangers. People who are sometimes without family, and you become their family.
Yes.
They're looking forward to the nurse showing up day after day because it lets them know they're not forgotten about.
Correct.
Because some people they don't have loved ones to rally around them and sit by their bedside. And I've seen and heard of nurses holding the hands of patients. I've seen in some settings when the patient is welcome, praying for people and not making a person feel like they are just thrown away.
No.
So it's such a caring profession. And I know that with COVID, so many things had to be done, just spur of the moment, right now, get it done. Have you noticed some changes to the hospitals and some medical institutions that COVID has made some changes that now you don't even go back from it. It becomes the medical scope of service now.
Correct. And I will say that fast-paced decision making with a lot of health systems, it's still in place.
Okay.
And COVID helped with that. So a lot of the meetings or committees that would take longer to approve things, now with COVID, we worked at such a fast rate pace that, you know, it's easier now to get things changed. It's easier to adjust to things. And so I feel like that was at least one benefit of COVID, that it kind of helped with that. And I do want to just make one comment from the last statement. I have a ton of things that I wish I could say about the compassion I saw from nurses when families weren't there.
Right.
That where truly nurses and physicians treated those patients as family.
Right.
And anything that was a request from somebody who couldn't come there at the bedside to their loved ones, they were doing for them. So there was birthday celebrations, there was, prayers, there was the comfort things when their families couldn't be at their side.
Wow. And
Yeah.
see, we don't get to see that.
Yeah.
We don't even get to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people struggled with driving up to the facility,
Yes.
letting a sick one out, and because it appeared everyone who went into the hospital died. That's what it looked like. But we do know that there are some testimonies
Yes.
of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
We have people now who are COVID survivors.
Yes.
They were positive, but they made it out the hospitals, even after being intubated and whatever they had to go through, but they made it out. So that lets us know that there was a team of people fighting on their behalf.
Yes. And a lot of healthcare workers like myself did not go home to their families because we didn't want to infect them either. And so here we were away from our families as well, taking care of others who couldn't be with their families. So it was, like I said, the most difficult time of my career.
Right. And right now, I know you are traveling. You've done traveling nursing as one of your things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Someone out there is considering traveling nursing.
Yes.
Because once again, it's a great reward financially.
Correct.
What are some of the challenges that you have seen with travel nursing, not to make it taboo, but just to let someone who is aspiring to do that, what have been some of the things that you have seen as you travel? Because you're in and out.
Yes, and I will say most people that, because, I was one of those people, as personal reasons, I was like, you know what, I'm going to travel. I'm almost an empty nest. My last kid is about to graduate and leave the house. So I'm looking at my next journey of just me, and travel nursing is very, it's very exciting because you get a 13-week contract. You get to travel. They pay per diem. They pay, your hotel. You get paid double of what a staff nurse gets. And so I think people only hear that.
Right.
The other pieces to it is that traveling, you're on that contract. When you arrive at that hospital, you know nobody. Not even the recruiter that hired you isn't there. And so you get one day to figure out where the bathroom and everything is, and then you're supposed to be in action. So I really do counsel or mentor younger nurses that ask me, well, when should I be able to start traveling? That I tell them that you should gain experience first. Be very confident in not just your profession, but also in your nursing skills, because, to be assertive, for your patients and things like that, you would need to have those qualities before you travel. Because traveling, you're getting the worst assignment. They know you're the short timer. And so, you're not the person that's kind of in the workings of the unit. So
Right.
You're the visitor. And so sometimes you get the short end of the stick. And so I think people don't know that side of traveling. But I will tell you, with my leadership background, each of my assignments, I was able to travel and be in some leadership capacity. And so I just kind of lean in on the things that I learned from, my past, experience. So I just come in as that leader. I'm usually very like, hey, I'm here to help you. And then, I either move on or I reassign. But I was able to travel right after I left leadership, and then teach as a nursing professor on the weekends. And with it being so close to my son's graduation, now I've kind of flipped it. So I am more full-time as a nursing professor right now, and then I'm a contingent travel nurse. So
Okay, well, that's awesome, because they actually know when you come in as a traveling a nurse, is that you're not going to be here very long.
right.
So sometimes that can be met with resistance because you're not one of the team.
Correct.
And you're coming in leadership, so you're in charge,
Yes.
and you're not one of us.
Right.
So how did you go in and set a standard or command respect in some of those environments? Because I'm sure it was met with resistance sometimes.
Yes, and I will say, and in being a minority as well, there's some aspects to that, traveling to different places. But I feel like being the type of leader that is a people leader. So I don't just come in with authority and say, y'all are going to follow me. I usually come in, I'm very humble to ask, what are things that they can share with me. But then I do my job. So they know that I'm a person of policy, and that's not going to change from when I was a permanent leader to a contingent or travel leader. So I come in with the same fairness and respect I give them. And majority of the time I get that fairness and respect back.
And that's what's key.
That is key.
You may not know me, you may not like me, but you will respect the knowledge that I have.
And I will treat you fair.
Right. Because what I bring to the table is what is needed here. That's why I'm here.
And most hospitals, especially if they need a charge nurse or a nurse manager as a traveler, they have a very big deficit in staffing, to put a leader in a travel position. And so it has just been, I actually, after I'm there, after a little bit, usually in the first week, people are like, who is she? But after I'm there for a little bit, then usually it's a good situation. And I've never traveled at a place and been in a position that I wasn't asked to stay. So I feel good that what I'm doing has been beneficial for the people that have hired me.
Great. And you're making a difference at that hospital, which has a known deficit.
Yes.
That's why you're there.
Correct.
But it's good to know that you are able to make an impact, because there are young nurses who are watching.
Yes.
And they are looking at their career and say, this is what I would like to do with nursing. I don't just want to be on the bedside forever. So you're letting them know you don't have to be there, but these are the things you put in place, and opportunities are there.
Yes, and I'm pretty much the poster child of not following the long path. So I tell them I came in as an associate degree nurse, and I went to a specialty. I became a leader at a short period of time. So I really do encourage people to follow their path, but just make sure that they're doing it where they're ready when they go to that next step.
Right. And learn what you need to learn at your level.
Yes.
So you can take that with you.
And one thing that you've probably heard me say more than once is that I've had mentors. I had a mentor socially, that is like family to me. I had a mentor professionally. And so I tell nurses all the time, especially even my students, find a mentor, find somebody who you relate to and that you look up to. And then that could be your sounding board and your person that can be your encourager.
Great. And that helps too, because they don't have to be blind.
No.
They don't have to be walking out there not knowing what needs to be done. And knowledge is out there.
Yes.
You just have to tap into it. And most people will be excited to share what needs to be done, but some people don't even know that they need to ask for it.
Correct.
They are just going for it and trying to figure it out on their own, Googling everything.
Yeah.
But Google can only take you so far.
Correct.
So that's awesome that you had a mentor that made an impact on your life, and someone who can be a sounding board, even when you may have endured some challenges.
Yes.
They can let you know that's not so bad.
Correct. Correct.
It's going to be okay.
Yes.
That's great. So we are going to now tell the people, what did you learn in your nursing career? Because Now you are careered at nursing.
I am.
And you've done so many different things. What did you learn that you can share with your students? Because now you are a professor. That you feel that they should have in their lives to help them along. We know they need to get a mentor.
Yes.
We know they need to seek a specialty. We know they need to take the path that is suitable for them, but learn what they can. What do they need to know as an individual? Because nursing is on the beat for care, but what should they possess as an individual? What type of heart do they need? What do they need to make what they do feel effortless?
Yes. Definitely the compassion that I was talking about. You should be a compassionate person. You should know that you are there to serve somebody else. And also just the nature of the nursing profession, that critical thinking skills. You'll hear a lot of experienced nurses talk about, well, they need to be critically thinking. So being quick on your feet, being able to investigate and active listening to patients so that you can understand the needs that they need. Those are some things that you can't teach a student. You know, it's kind of a personality trait. And so for people who are very good in that, or they naturally have those qualities, they would do very well in nursing. Because if you're somebody who can think quick on your feet, you're very sensitive and compassionate to others, you're willing to work hard to make sure you take care of people, then you will do fine in nursing.
Great. That's awesome. And you talk about being of service.
Yes.
A lot of people don't get it from the layman's perspective that family care and caring for a loved one goes beyond the hospital.
Yes.
Because you have families that are there who are going to care for this person when they leave the hospital. How do you deal with serving the patient and being of service to the family? Because I know families can sometimes just be annoying, just bothering a nurse, and because their family member is special to them and they want you to treat their family member like they're the only one here at the hospital. How do you deal with that? Because sometimes family members don't understand what nurses are tasked with doing, and they want what they want when they want it. Pressing the button.
Correct.
My family member needs some ice. Their feet are cold. And how do you serve the family? Because they become a part of the service team as well.
So as a former manager and also as a clinical instructor, I teach nurses that when you go into that patient's room, you're giving 150% to that patient at that time. And where the disconnect is with families is that they're part of that holistic care. So we won't ignore the family. You have to bring them in, provide information to them, communicate not just to our patient, but to the family with the patient's permission. But you also need to be very transparent on what you have to do. So when you leave out that room and you're saying, hey, I'm going to go get your ice chips and I'll be back, they may have went out the room because they have 6 other patients.
Right.
They may have coded somebody. They may have to give a bad bath to somebody. They may have somebody that's having a respiratory issue. And then you come back into that room and the family member's mad at them. And so you have to understand that that person is at the worst time of their life with their family member. And so being more communicative, being more transparent, being able to say, we never want to say I was busy or, because we don't want them to think that they weren't our primary responsibility or our primary attention, but just say, I am sorry. It's going to take me a little bit longer to get that because I have one more thing to do or something like that. But I think most family members are appreciative if you're communicating clearly and being a little more transparent to their needs. And then that kind of cools people down. If I just leave out and come back and I don't humble myself to say, I'm sorry, I know I took a little longer or anything, people will get upset. And if you ask any other nurses, most nurses will say families are probably the worst part of being in nursing. We love our patients and then the family members come in, but they're a part of that journey for that patient. So we have to give them that attention as well. But I think the proper education of what's going on, the proper education of this is what I need to do. And I'm a very direct speaker. I would say, hey, I'm about to leave out the room. I may have a few things I need to do, but I will be back.
Right.
And if you're consistent with that and showing them that they are a big part of your responsibility and your attention, people will give you a little grace sometimes when you're a little late or whatever. But I would never come back in and be like, I just solved the world for the patient next door, and so I was late getting your ice. But sometimes that does happen.
Well, yes, because we see it all the time.
Yes.
Even as a patient and a family member that's present that wants answers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they want answers now because, as I said, it's the fear of the unknown.
It is.
They don't know what's going on, and you are supposed to have the knowledge.
But I will tell you, a good nurse will listen to all of that, even absorb that anxiety or even some of the angers that patient is showing, and you will never know all the other things she just had to do outside that room. She will come back in and then start back in that 100% attention to that patient. And so it's not fair sometimes that, we kind of do that, but that goes with that service to that patient and to the family. So as long as you're communicating and things go well, then it's okay to, sometimes give them a little grace too when they get upset.
Do you ever have to stand outside of a patient's room and take a deep breath before you enter the next one?
Oh, always, yeah.
Because you have to leave what just happened in room
do.
12
Mm-hmm.
there as
Yes.
you enter in room
Correct.
212.
Correct.
Okay.
Like I said, it's that person's experience shouldn't be a carryover from the last person I took care of.
Right.
And so sometimes, yes, I might need a second or two to do that. But I will tell you that's just part of nursing.
Right.
And with experience, it gets easier. So I'm usually that older nurse now with my gray hair that will pat the little ones on the shoulder and be like, it's okay. Just take a deep breath, get something to drink, and then get back in there.
And come back and be 100%
Yes.
for the next patient.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And that's good to share because sometimes they need that because they could feel overwhelmed.
Yes, it's very overwhelming.
And they might need that little pat on the back and say, this too shall pass.
Yes.
Just keep showing up
Mm-hmm.
and you'll navigate through it.
And it's emotionally draining if you have 7 patients that
Right.
you're giving 100% to. And so, they need that love and support as well.
Right. And a lot of times nurses are working short-staffed, right?
Mm-hmm.
At hospitals, we hear of that just from hearing nurses talk and share where they're working doubles and they're working to cover shifts where
Or mandatory overtime.
things like that. And so you basically have to be prepared
Correct.
to always be on, even on your day off, because you may be called in. They may need you.
You could. And so those situations do happen, and that sometimes does cause nurses to burn out a little, So that's the best thing for a nurse to do is to find things to fill your own cup also. Right. You have to have that balance for yourself because working at that pace, with that stress, you're not going to be able to do that longevity, or long term. So you need to have that work-life balance for yourself and that emotional pickup for yourself. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's anything in life.
Yeah.
You can't be all of one thing and not care for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your mental health is very important.
Right.
Even in nursing or whatever profession you choose. So what do you see when you look in the mirror outside of the scrubs? Mm-hmm. Who do you see when you say you're not Dr. Shalunda Tyler? You're just Shalunda.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you say that you are that has helped you be the great nurse and the professor that you are?
Well, I will credit my parents for a lot of it. I had a really good upbringing, even some of the things that I didn't agree with when I was younger, but now I'm like, I thank God that they did that for me. But I have a big family too, on both sides of my family. So I feel like I'm able to do what I'm doing and be able to encourage others because of the love and support that I have in my personal life. And so I see myself as somebody who wants to have my purpose to help others. But a lot of that has to come from the love that I have received and the support I've received.
And you know who you are.
I do.
And you know who you are. So you have to have self-awareness. You have to actually be comfortable with who you are.
Correct.
In order to give the type of love and care that's needed at the bedside or even in leadership.
Right. And I had to grow to that.
Okay.
So when I was a new nurse, back when I was at the bedside or in the OR, I didn't have that. Now I'm at the different stage of my life. But for those nurses out there that are just starting, it shall come. It takes a year and a half to have that confidence and that self-assurance in yourself. But it does happen. And when it does switch, it's a good thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. What would you tell someone who is thinking of following in your path? Just a one-liner. What would you say to them? What's needed?
I would say, and following my path for nursing.
Yes.
I would say I feel like we need more compassionate nurses, people that are willing to come in and bring new ideas, because nursing is just like everything else. It's evolving. And so we need the young people to be able to come in, look at the things that we're doing, and maybe even bring some innovative ideas and practices to us. So, we welcome anybody who wants to come into nursing and serve our patients with fresh ideas. And I love seeing like the videos and the social media stuff of the young nurses that do dances, or they're having a good time, or they're making patients laugh, or doing things, because that's something that we didn't really have when I first started, but that brings the joy back into nursing.
Right. And that actually fuels the soul. Laughter.
Yeah.
And even when people are ill, just a moment of laughter can be just a little glimmer of hope that all is not lost.
Right.
So that's great that nurses can smile and make videos. And we thank God for all the nurses, all the medical professionals out there who have chosen careers of caring and loving on people. We thank you and we appreciate you. And Dr. Tyler, I thank you so much for being present on this podcast, telling your story about what happens behind the scrubs.
And I thank you for inviting me.
And it's not just the money. You have to have a heart for people. You have to have love. You have to know who you are. And you have to be willing to follow the path that is set for you. Learn what's your purpose outside of nursing and whichever career that you choose. So before we end, I want to leave this with you. No matter what path you decide to take, you must first know who you are. That will make where you're going so much easier, because you will know who God has created you to be. So all of you who are aspiring to be a nurse, who want to be in the caring profession, I say learn to love yourself. Know how to show genuine love in spite of. So we thank all of our nurses. We thank everyone that is standing on the front line, caring for strangers. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being a part of the healing team. Thank you for sacrificing yourself. I thank God for you. And until next time, you be blessed. Join in once again to By His Grace podcast. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content. And I hope this session, Grace to Nurse, with Dr. Shalunda Tyler, has been a blessing to you. You be blessed. Bye-bye.